Oh, yeah. New day, new bike ride, new set of things to talk about. This one's going to be about the stronger Fair West movement. You're looking at it, this is Fair West. Maybe this is your neighborhood. That's who it's intended for, really. People who live in this neighborhood. If you don't know where it is, you can Google it. You can find a description, probably linked in the. You can find a link in the description. Anyhow, so I've been communicating more and more with neighbors and a little bit with the neighborhood association, trying to figure out who else has interest or who else is already pursuing what Stronger Fair West has as one of the goals, and that is to acquire these vacant properties, these condemned properties, rehab them, and sell them, get some new owners. Um, doesn't seem like anyone's doing this yet. It seems like from time to time people come in and they flip homes, but who is trying to figure out why homes stay in a state of disrepair for years? And there's a number of people who think, oh, the city should come in and do something, or the county, or maybe people's families. And, you know, that'd be great, but it takes many years. I've been looking into the legal side of things. How can these homes be acquired? And I think the fact that there are vacant homes, which I think have a lot more value um, than probably a number of us realize, the fact that those haven't been picked up by house flippers in order to turn a profit is a demonstration of how hard it is to get access to these properties. It's so hard that even the people who are trying to squeeze every nickel out of every property, they haven't even gotten there yet. Um, that's a pretty cynical take on it. If you disagree, feel free to leave me a comment. I'm not saying I want these house flippers to come in. I'm not trying to be a house flipper. But there's a lot of overlap. What I do want is I want for these homes to have owners. I want the owners to live in them. And I want our neighborhood to be a little bit more vital, a little bit more alive, greener, less abandoned. And everybody can nod along with that. It's just a dispute over how do we get there. And so I've had a little bit of contact with people telling me what doesn't work, and I agree with them. But it's what I'm more interested in is not in finding all the things to complain about, how the city doesn't do it, how the families don't do it, how the homeowners don't do it. Nobody enforces codes, homeless people, or whatever you think about them. I'm not interested in those discussions in exclusivity. Those things can be discussed. What I'm interested in is how do we actually find a way within this very weird system that we live in of laws and economic interests, how do we turn that in such a way that these properties are not empty and they are lived in legally and by people who are just living their lives, doing their things. Hopefully they're good people, but we'll do our best. Also without turning deeply to falling prey to gentrification, which has happened in other neighborhoods. I'm, I'm apparently speaking from two different sides. On one side, I'm saying our neighborhood is falling down in terms of how nice it is, and on the other side, I'm saying, but let's worry about not making it too nice from the gentrification aspect. At least that's how I used to understand gentrification. I think there's also looking at it and thinking as the neighborhood becomes nicer and more expensive, that leads to a certain exclusivity, and that doesn't make it stronger. That makes it fine for some people, but it's there are some real drawbacks to that. So how do we keep the neighborhood affordable? I would argue it ain't affordable right now. I guess it's easy for me to set that straw man up and then knock it down of saying we need the neighborhood to remain affordable. But really it's not. I purchased my house in 2018 and it's basically doubled in value. I wouldn't be able to afford now, and I think I'm a valuable contributor to the community. least I try to be. So I have a pretty decent job as well. And if I cannot afford to live in this neighborhood presently, who is? There are only so many Sandia engineers that can move in here. They're going to the Northeast Heights probably, or wherever they go now. I'm sorry, that's offensive. I should take that out. But basically, we need to make sure that not only people who have high-end tech and information jobs, or high-end jobs, if you will, we need them to move in here. We need people who don't necessarily live at the top end of the economic spectrum. And, it can be a little bit confusing. If you moved into the neighborhood, I've met a number of people who purchased their homes many years ago, and I don't think they realize what the current state of affairs is doing to people who are to move in. A number of people who I've met are retired teachers. It's very hard for a teacher to move in right now when a house costs $250,000 to $300,000 if they also have student loans, if they have debt, if they have mixed credit. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't want them here. So how do we get them in here? And how much longer do I have in this video? Quite a bit of time, so I'll ramble about this for a while. What it comes down to is that's just too expensive. We're not going to raise the salaries of teachers to that degree. Teachers make, well, tell me what you make in the comments, teachers. How much do you make in Albuquerque? Whether it's public or private. I'll tell you what a nurse makes. We make, as a daytime nurse at UNM Hospital, you make about $70,000 to $80,000 a year. And so, sure, you can purchase quite a bit of home for that. But how do you purchase, a home that is not more than 30% of your take-home pay in terms of the mortgage and the electric and everything like that? It's a challenge, especially if you don't have a lot to put for a down payment because you've got debts to pay off that are at higher interest rates. So, of course, you're being financially responsible and trying to pay down your high interest debts fast. But that's even the good case scenario. That's for the people who have enough income from their jobs after they graduate from whatever, or after they go through whatever training course, such that they have the ability to save. And that ability to save does not make you a good or a bad neighbor. I have run into a number of people who do not have the ability to save, and I wish they were my neighbors. That's part of the point of what I want to explore with these homes. How can we leverage a nonprofit spirit such that these homes are acquired? And we're going to have to pay for them. I don't know how much. I don't know exactly how we're going to finance it, but we're going to have to, in most cases, pay for these homes. People are probably expecting money from these things. Or something. They need a certain amount of money, even if it's just to pay off all the liens and all of the penalties, essentially, that have accumulated. A number of these homes, they're certainly capable of being assets, but they're also very capable, as a number of us homeowners know, that this can be a liability, especially if the city comes out and they put liens on your property for having cleaned it up, or if the water authority does the same. It's very easy for these homes to be upside down in terms of what they offer to the owner. And so the owners are stuck. I don't mean to vilify all of them. There are probably, I can't recall the details of all of the condemned homes at the moment. Some of them seem to be by businesses that I don't think they have community interests in mind, but there are also some that are owned by just individuals. And life happened, and for various reasons, they are not utilizing this asset, and it's not important to them that it's not being utilized. But it is important to the people who still live here. It's important to me, and I assume to most of the people who are listening to me drone on about this for, it'll probably be, 25 minutes? All right, let's take a quick break from talking about housing just to go and look at the video. I'm just crossing over Central and Morningside, my favorite way, almost always, to cross Central, especially when I can hop onto Silver, and that's such a delight. I think this is the video I'm recording this audio at a different time few days later, but there was a house for sale on the left side here, one of these townhomes. And as I was biking, I thought to myself, oh, I should look at that. I should get the details. I should not forget about this. And I biked on knowing that I was going to forget about it. But at a certain point, oh, yep, there's my brain. It told my body to look back. So I went back and took a quick peek at the flyer that was outside. It's the bottom line is this is a 1900 and change square foot shared walled home, and it's 400 grand. Cool. If I was a better videographer, I would have actually put that in frame, but I do not yet know what I'm doing. You can search Zillow for the details, I'm sure. Just look on this. It's near Silver and Morningside. I think these were the apartment complexes in Breaking Bad, right? Or townhome. I don't know what. Maybe it's a condominium. I'm not sure. Wonder if there's an HOA fee as well. Man, that all goes back to, not coincidentally, the whole idea that I was talking about in the beginning of this video. And that is housing. Holy cow, is it expensive? But I'm also speaking from a pretty privileged place, if you will, in that I own a house, and so I'm on this very regimented fixed mortgage, easy to understand what I'm going to be paying, master of my own destiny. That's what I tell myself. And I'm not subject to the whims of the housing market where rents go from $800 a month and then a couple years later you're paying $1,600 a month for basically the same kind of thing. That's rough. And that's not my reality, but I see it. And it's pretty tempting to try and ignore it on my own. I'm doing well, but I think we all know there's a lot of people who are not doing so well. Or if they even have the securities that we have of stable housing and access to food, sometimes it can be a little bit more precarious than we would want to believe. None of us are probably all that far from not having stable housing if a number of months pass and things don't go our way, or if there's a new health problem, things like that. I'm being a little bit dramatic, but just a little bit. It's a real possibility. I haven't had friends or family who are close to me who have gone through this. I have met people who I've become friendly with who have. And so I believe this experience, but it's also not so pervasive that it's happened within my family. Part of that I think we all probably need to recognize is the fact that if I ran out of money, I'd go live with my parents. I'd go live with family. A lot of us have those kind of supports to fall back on, but not everybody. And, it's also very possible to burn those bridges. I'm not saying that it's a one-way street of woe is me to people who are not doing so well. How do you balance personal responsibility and lack of lack of social resources and network? I don't know. It's a tricky one. I worked with healthcare for the homeless, and you get to see all the nuances. And I was only there for a short period of time, a very short period of time. If anybody from that organization is listening, hello and good luck. Man, that's a tough position to be in. I do hope to contribute, not so boldly as to saying ending homelessness, but so boldly as to saying I want the neighborhood that I live in to be fuller of people and to be a greater buffer against other people being exposed to homelessness by trying to encourage sane rents, sane prices. Maybe not even sane. Sane's the wrong word. Affordable. Something affordable to people. Something that's not getting them each month closer and closer to not having a place to live. And that happens on multiple fronts. Some of it's financial, some of it's legal system. Some of it's just having, if, renters are in the neighborhood, how do you encourage landlords to be good landlords? I think if you have a good landlord, it's more likely you'll have a good renter. But, I'm gonna get a lot of pushback on that one from landlords. I recognize that, but also I've spoken with a number of landlords who do agree with it. But I'm sure it would lead to quite a conversation. This is the sort of thing that I don't think is productively discussed on Nextdoor or in the comments section. I tend to talk about this stuff with neighbors who I meet and with nonprofits who I meet with in coffee shops. I think it's a tricky conversation to have online. There's absolutely some irony as I'm just broadcasting this out online. I would encourage people not to have debates in the comment section. I would encourage, if you are listening to this and you disagree with me, I think if you should probably live near me. Let's chit chat. Let's talk. Let's see. Am I wrong? Do I need to soften? Are you wrong? Do you need to soften? And it's probably not so binary as right and wrong. It's more about where do we connect. Almost everybody who I talk to, we share a lot more in common in terms of hopes and desires for changes to come into whether it's law or society, than we do have deep differences. And I talk to a lot of people who are absolutely not aligned with me politically. You can probably figure out my politics just by listening to this. You've already maybe made a few determinations. I don't even think it's necessarily to put a label on what it is. But if you were going to put a label on me, that's fine. I'll work within that. But I think in the end, I just prefer to have conversations in person. And so if you start debating in the comments, I'm going to try and probably reach out to you, and I'd like to talk in person. I think there's a lot more to be gained. I gain a lot more from that. And I like meeting people. I like having reasons to bike around. So many different little coffee shops and places to go in town. I'm always happy to explore more, hang out in the park, things like that, libraries. Make use of sometimes private public places and sometimes just public places. So, and by that I mean private businesses like the coffee shops and the little restaurants. I think it's also a great way to support local businesses. I can meet in Panera Bread, and that's kind of a okay meeting spot. But meeting in a locally owned coffee shop or in a city-run library, I think that really gives you a better idea of who exists in the community. The people who own Panera don't work at Panera. The employees who work there, they live here in Albuquerque, but the people who really call the shots and the money that's taken out of Albuquerque through those big organizations, that goes elsewhere. And so this is a pretty community-focused, local-focused movement, Stronger Fair West. I get so focused that I try and even support Fair West, but we don't have a great place to meet yet. Anybody been to Cesar's or Caesar's, however you want to say it, on Lomas and San Mateo? That place, I haven't felt super comfortable hanging out there. Plus, the seats in there are not awesome. It's just not a place that I see people going. And to show you how hipster I am, on the other side, if you go to Humble Coffee on Lomas and I forget the cross street, that place is full of people, probably mostly from surrounding neighborhoods. A bunch of people drive there. Some people walk there. It's a much more utilized meeting spot. And I think that is, the reason for that is on multiple fronts. I wish we could have one in Fair West. I'm not sure how to get that going yet. But I think eventually that should be one of the goals of the Stronger Fair West movement. So if you agree, let me know. I think it'd be great to have library, community center, coffee shop, something along those lines that we could walk to. Aside from walking dogs, and occasionally I walk around with my cat, but aside from walking dogs, why do people walk in the neighborhood? I walk to the grocery store. I see a few other people who walk to the grocery store. There's some reason, but then you got to cross Lomas or San Mateo, and only a few brave souls seem to be up for that. It's not horrible, but you have to be, somewhat strong against the idea of either using the crosswalks or using the more efficient method, which is non-crosswalk, and just taking safety into your own hands in a much more major way than we're used to. Switching again back to the video, in a second here you'll see me look off to the side, and someone walking their dog in this neighborhood came over and was talking to me about the camera on my helmet. It was great. I had a nice little conversation with this guy. His dog was friendly. He has been in the area for a while. Came here, I think, because of the health care from the VA that he was looking for. Really nice guy, and just a good example of the chance encounters that I think are hard to get sometimes in our neighborhood, and I'd like to encourage more. I think at a certain point I stop recording him, and then I'll cut to me biking away 20 minutes later or so. But yeah, these little spontaneous conversations, maybe I'm just a shut-in, but I don't feel them happening all that often in Fair West. Do other people? Maybe I need to learn some socialization skills. So if you find yourself having lots of chance encounters and nice interactions with neighbors who you didn't previously know, just by walking around in Fair West, let me know. I would like more reasons to walk. If I wanted to buy, a used car, I've got a number of options to walk to. But if I don't want to cross Lomas or San Mateo, there is a coffee shop. I guess there's Caps. Caps I need to explore that more. Who else goes there? I've only been there once. It was pretty pleasant. Walking down there, I think, you go through some pretty rougher areas when you start getting around. If you're going south on Alvarado, whatever that church is that's down there, it feels like maybe a vulnerable spot. And I'm a able-bodied, relatively young man, and it feels a little intimidating to me. So I'm gonna guess, especially based on the lack of foot traffic down there, that other people share that concern. That could be a real area to figure out. How do we increase the safety, or how do we enhance the feeling of that area to promote more foot traffic? And one of the ways in doing that is you gotta have a reason to go somewhere. You can go down to Caps, get some food and get a coffee. Unlike a coffee shop, I don't know if they would love it if you go in there and just order a coffee, but they have the bar, could do that. In fact, I hope that I can find some people in Fair West and we can just meet there. Let's try and bring them some business, bring some vitality down there, and bring some attention, in our conversations. I'm sure if we just walk on down there, I'd even be happy to meet and walk down. A little bit of solidarity as a group, even if it's just two people, is thinking about what makes this feel uninviting. Is it all the trash strewn around, or is it the weird commercial properties that have gates and a bunch of busted up cars there? Is it a lack of knowing neighbors who live in the apartments that start cropping up as we get further and further down there? Fair West is the neighborhood. I don't know the exact limits, but when I start going south of Copper, I feel like I'm not really in the neighborhood that I know, and maybe it feels, I just don't know anybody who lives down there. It feels like a different neighborhood, but really, I consider it part of the neighborhood that I'd like to know better. I'd like to know people who live down there more, and I think I've met a few, but if I just go walk around at night, I'm not going south of Copper. Maybe that's just my own prejudice. I think it's important to kind of, think about those. What prejudices do we have? How do they exist? And should they be challenged? And if they should, how do you do it? So, yeah, I'm going to keep that in mind. I'm going to try and get down to caps a little bit more often. We've got a neighborhood cleanup coming up on the 20, I don't know what on the Saturday, and that will be the Saturday the 30th of September, 10 a.m. Other people, I think some people might show up at 9. Show up, like if you want to join the group that I'm trying to assemble, we'll meet at 10. I'm trying to bring some coffee and maybe little snacks. Because, hopefully we pick up some trash, but I really think it's most important to just interact with neighbors and have a reason to come together, know people, get some connections going within the neighborhood. Let's see, what's this? I'm going back to the video, looking at the video. I arrived at the wrong place, but I cut the video here for a second and then pick it up again. We shall see in the next few seconds, I believe. One day I will get better at editing video. So while we go through this little dark phase of mine on the video, I'll just keep saying that I'm trying to encourage more people to get together. I'd like more places to exist. And for walkability to increase within the neighborhood, which I think is important in order to meet more neighbors and to break down some of the isolation that I have participated in, I have felt, and now I'm hoping to confront. We need more places to go. Along San Pedro, on the eastern side of the neighborhood, what is there? There was a bakery that I never checked out. There's a bunch of dispensaries, I guess. There's some auto stores, some of which I use. But where do you go? What's the reason to go there other than crossing that street to go to the fairgrounds? Who walks to San Pedro? There's a McDonald's, so if you're into McDonald's, I don't know if you can walk there. During the pandemic, it seems like they closed the inside, and now it's just a drive-through. And I'm one of those people. I've tried to walk through a drive-through. They won't let you. I tried to do the same thing at Stripes Burritos. They weren't psyched about that either, across the street. So I still don't know if their burritos are any good, which is a shame. Maybe I can go through on my bicycle, but I don't know. I kind of doubt it because they always give me some vague legal reason. So you're listening to a video from a guy who does stuff like that. So keep that in mind if you're going to take any of my suggestions somewhat seriously. I am interested in increasing walkability, and I'm not above having silly little acts like trying to walk through a drive-through to prove a point. Wow, still black video. Well, I'm not really sure. I guess that's the end of the video. Must have been a different video that I tacked the actual footage onto. So we'll wrap it up here. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next video, which will probably be involving Adobe creation in my backyard.